The Galactic War Summit. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with quiet murmurs as representatives from dozens of species filled their seats. Towering insectoid diplomats clicked their mandibles in disapproval, while reptilian warlords coiled their tails impatiently. At the center of the room, beneath the hovering holographic display of a contested planet, stood General Vasquez, the lone human representative. His dark military uniform was crisp, but his sharp eyes betrayed his irritation. "This is a waste of time," scoffed Ambassador Kael'Vok of the Zalari Dominion. His deep blue skin shimmered under the Council's artificial lights. "The humans are tactically irrelevant. Their soldiers lack grace, their reflexes are slow, and their sight is weak. If we are to win this war against the Dralic, we must deploy our finest warriors, not clumsy primates with projectile weapons." A ripple of amusement spread through the chamber. Other representatives nodded in agreement. Humans were a curiosity, a young species that had barely ventured beyond their homeworld. They were tolerated, perhaps even amusing, but surely not to be taken seriously in matters of war. Vasquez's jaw clenched, but his voice remained steady. "With all due respect, Ambassador, I suggest you take a second look at the battle reports from Verdun 4. Kael'Vok scoffed. "Ah, yes. The humans held the line for 3 days. A commendable effort, but hardly impressive. You threw bodies at the problem. Where was the tactical precision? Where was the elegance?" Vasquez smirked. He had expected this kind of reaction. To most species in the Council, war was a matter of formations, honor, and grand displays of power. They didn't understand what it meant to fight a war like humans did. "We fight to win," Vasquez said. "Not for pageantry." The holographic display above them flickered, shifting to show a new battlefield, an arid, jungle-choked world on the outskirts of Dralic space. Bright red indicators highlighted enemy strongholds. The Council had been struggling for months to claim this planet, yet every assault ended in costly failures. Kael'Vok sneered. "And what exactly do you propose, General? Another human charge of Vela?" "No," Vasquez replied, his smirk deepening. "I propose you let us do what we do best." Silence filled the chamber. The Zalari ambassador narrowed his eyes. "And what exactly do humans do best?" Vasquez leaned forward, resting both hands on the polished table. "We hunt." Kael'Vok let out an amused chuckle. "Oh, and what do you intend to hunt, General? Dralic warships? Armored battalions?" "No," Vasquez said calmly. "We'll hunt their leaders." The room fell silent again. Now, he had their attention. Vasquez tapped a command on his wrist console, and the hologram shifted once more. Enemy strongholds disappeared, leaving only highlighted figures, Dralic commanders, each one responsible for the coordination of their forces. "They rely on centralized leadership," Vasquez explained. "Their command structure is rigid. Remove a leader, and the underlings fall into chaos. The only reason they are still holding this planet is because they outmatch your armies in direct confrontation." A representative from the Doran Empire, a thickly built quadruped species, tilted his head. "What are you suggesting?" "A small human task force," Vasquez said. "No grand fleets, no formations, just a handful of snipers." The word meant little to most of the species in the room. The concept of engaging an enemy without being seen was alien to them, quite literally. Kael'Vok frowned. "Snipers." Vasquez allowed himself a small grin. "One shot, one kill, before the enemy even knows they are being targeted." A murmur of uncertainty spread through the chamber. The idea of fighting without engaging, of striking without ever revealing oneself, was something the Council had never truly considered. Kael'Vok crossed his arms. "And you expect us to believe that a handful of these snipers will succeed where entire fleets have failed?" "I don't expect you to believe it," Vasquez said. "I expect you to let us prove it." The Council members exchanged glances. A few of them looked skeptical. Others seemed intrigued. After a long pause, Kael'Vok exhaled sharply. "Very well, human. You have your chance. But if you fail, don't expect another seat at this table." Vasquez only smiled. "We won't fail." Far away, on the contested jungle planet, a team of human snipers was already deploying. The hunt had begun. Ghosts in the jungle. Dense jungle canopy stretched endlessly across the horizon, shrouded in thick mist and the hum of alien insects. The Dralic Fortress, an imposing structure of blackened metal and pulsating energy conduits, loomed in the distance. Inside its walls, high-ranking officers of the Dralic Command felt secure. Their enemy had failed every direct assault. No army had ever breached their defenses. But humans did not fight like an army. Sergeant Daniel Cole lay motionless in the underbrush, his body painted in camouflage, his sniper rifle pressed firmly against his shoulder. The scope's reticle hovered over a Dralic officer, a tall, sinewy creature with ridged armor-like skin, standing on the fortress balcony. Through his earpiece, a whisper came through. "Wind steady. No movement. Take the shot." Cole's breath slowed. His finger pressed against the trigger. A suppressed crack cut through the jungle's ambient noise. The officer's head snapped back. He collapsed without a sound. Inside the fortress, alarms blared. The Dralic scrambled, searching for an enemy that wasn't there. Cole smiled. One down. The art of war, human style. Miles away, hidden among thick vegetation, Captain Elizabeth Liz Hayes monitored the situation through a drone feed. The mission was simple: eliminate the Dralic Command structure without ever being seen. The Council had given them one chance to prove the worth of human warfare. "Cole, confirm kill," she said over comms. "Confirmed. No response team on my end yet, but they are looking." Hayes turned to the rest of the team. "Good. Keep them guessing. Remember, the longer they don't know where we are, the more terrified they'll be." Unlike the Council species, humans understood something fundamental about war. Psychological warfare was just as powerful as a bullet. If the enemy feared you, they fought worse. They made mistakes. And in the end, they died faster. Hunting the hunters. Inside the fortress, the Dralic officers gathered, their voices sharp with tension. "This is impossible," one of them growled. No shots were fired inside the walls, and yet Commander Velroth is dead. "They are using projectile weapons," another sneered. "Ancient tools of primitive warfare. They should not be a threat." But fear had already settled in. The Dralic were warriors, trained for head-on combat. They had never fought an enemy they couldn't see. Outside the fortress, Sergeant James O'Malley adjusted his position in a tree, his rifle aimed at the entrance below. Through his scope, he watched as a high-ranking officer stormed toward a group of soldiers. "This one looks important," O'Malley muttered. Hayes' voice crackled in his ear. "Take the shot." The officer was mid-sentence when his chest exploded. Panic erupted among the soldiers. Some fired wildly into the jungle. Others ducked behind cover, unsure where to hide. O'Malley smirked. "They are scared." Hayes observed the chaos with satisfaction. And they should be. The fear sets in. Back inside the council chamber, General Vasquez watched the live feed alongside the gathered diplomats. The Zalari ambassador, Kael'Vok, frowned deeply. "This is unsettling." Vasquez folded his arms. "Welcome to human warfare." Kael'Vok shook his head. "I do not understand. There is no honor in this. Where is the battle? Where is the test of strength?" Vasquez turned to him, his expression hard. "War isn't about honor. It's about survival. And if you're not afraid of the enemy, then you haven't fought humans." Kael'Vok fell silent as another Dralic officer dropped dead on screen. Night falls. As darkness descended over the jungle, the Dralic fortress was in turmoil. Commanders were dead. Soldiers were breaking ranks. The enemy was nowhere and everywhere. Captain Hayes watched it all unfold. She gave the final order. Time to finish this. In the distance, explosives were armed. The fortress had no idea what was coming next. The fall of giants. The Dralic fortress was no longer the impenetrable stronghold it had once been. What had begun as confusion among their ranks had evolved into full-scale panic. The once disciplined warriors were now erratic, firing wildly into the jungle, jumping at shadows, and shouting contradictory orders. The humans had become ghosts, whispers of death in the dark. Captain Elizabeth Hayes observed it all from her vantage point, lying prone atop a ridge overlooking the fortress. The night vision scope of a rifle revealed terrified Dralics scurrying between cover, their armor clanking as they desperately search for the invisible enemy. "Look at them," Sergeant Cole muttered over comms. "They are breaking." "That's what fear does," Hayes replied. "Time to push them over the edge." She keyed her MIC to the demolition team. "Lewis, are the charges set?" A static crackle, then a voice. "Charges are primed, Captain. Just say the word." She checked the time. They had spent the last 24 hours systematically dismantling the enemy's leadership, making them believe they were being hunted by an unseen force. Now, it was time for the killing blow. Hayes exhaled. "Light it up." The wrath of the unseen enemy. A thunderous explosion shattered the night as the first set of charges detonated along the fortress's outer perimeter. The reinforced walls buckled under the force, sending flaming debris into the air. Screams of confusion and pain filled the comms of those monitoring the scene. Before the echoes of the explosion faded, another blast rocked the west side of the structure. The Dralic barely had time to react before yet another eruption blew out the main watchtower, sending pieces of it crashing onto the barracks below. Panic became hysteria. Inside the council chamber, General Vasquez leaned back in his chair, watching the live feed with arms crossed. The Zalari ambassador, Kaelvok, looked horrified. This is genocide," he whispered. "No," Vasquez corrected. "This is precision. We're not here to wipe them out. We're here to make them surrender before they even think of fighting back." Kaelvok shook his head. "I have never seen war waged like this." Vasquez smirked. "Then you've never seen humans fight." Hunting the last commanders. Inside the crumbling fortress, the few remaining high-ranking Dralic officers had gathered in their war room, their faces pale with dread. One of them slammed his fist on the table. "We are being slaughtered like animals. We must fight back." "With what?" another officer shouted. "We don't even know where they are." General Vextar, the highest-ranking officer left alive, clenched his jaw. "We need to retreat. Regroup. If we stay here, we die." Before he could issue the order, the war room doors burst open. A single figure stood in the doorway, a human clad in dark combat gear, his rifle raised. Sergeant Cole. The officers barely had time to register the sight before Cole fired. His suppressed shots punched through Dralic armor, dropping 2 officers before the rest could react. One managed to draw his sidearm, only to be taken down by a blade to the throat as O'Malley emerged from the shadows. General Vextar stumbled backward, his back hitting the console behind him. His elite warriors, his fortress, his leadership, all gone in a matter of days. Cole stepped forward, rifle leveled. "You're done." The general swallowed hard. "Who are you?" O'Malley grinned. "We're humans." The lesson in terror. With their command structure obliterated and their fortress in ruins, the remaining Dralic forces abandoned their posts. Entire squads dropped their weapons and fled into the jungle, hoping to escape the invisible hunters. They didn't get far. The human forces, already positioned along possible escape routes, systematically captured or eliminated fleeing soldiers. By dawn, the Dralic forces had been utterly shattered. Captain Hayes stood at the edge of the ruined fortress, watching the smoke rise. The mission was complete. Not a single human life had been lost. She keyed her MIC. "Vasquez, fortress is secured. Dralic command is gone." Through the comms, she could hear the murmurs of the alien diplomats. They had witnessed the entire battle through the live feed. Their perception of humans had changed forever. "Understood," Vasquez finally replied. "Prepare for the next phase. The Council needs to have a little chat about underestimating humanity." Hayes smirked, looking forward to it. The cost of underestimation. The Galactic Council's silence. The council chamber was eerily quiet. A room once filled with bureaucratic noise, diplomatic bickering, and political posturing was now consumed by a suffocating tension. The holographic display in the center of the chamber still projected the smoking ruins of the Dralic fortress. Scattered bodies of their once mighty warriors lay where they had fallen, and the remains of their great defensive walls were now little more than rubble. The alien representatives, who had once scoffed at the idea of humans as a military power, sat in stunned disbelief. Kaelvok, the Zalari ambassador, finally broke the silence. His voice was hoarse. I did not believe it was possible. General Vasquez, standing tall and composed, leaned forward. We told you. His voice was calm, almost casual, yet it carried the weight of undeniable truth. Humans don't start wars. We don't rush into battles we can't win. But if you force our hand, he gestured to the display. This happens. An Avrixian diplomat, his feathers puffed in nervous agitation, stammered, "You hunted them like animals. Their own fortress became a tomb." Vasquez nodded. Yes. Kael'Vok's dark eyes flickered between Vasquez and the images of the battlefield. I do not understand. How did you do this? The Dralic are trained warriors. Their fortress was secure. Their numbers were greater. Vasquez smiled coldly. They thought war was about numbers, about brute force, about overwhelming an enemy with superior firepower. He shook his head. That's not how humans fight. War, real war, is psychological. It's fair. It's deception. It's making your enemy lose before the final shot is even fired. The gathered counselors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had all believed humans to be reckless, clumsy, and unsophisticated in warfare. What they had just witnessed was nothing short of a nightmare. The Dralic's humiliation. The chamber doors opened, and two heavily armed human guards entered, escorting a battered figure. General Vextar, the last surviving Dralic commander from the fortress, was dragged before the council. His armor was cracked, his face bruised, and his eyes, once filled with arrogance, were now haunted. The guards forced him to his knees before Vasquez. "Tell them," Vasquez ordered. Vextar gritted his teeth but remained silent. Vasquez sighed, then turned to Captain Elizabeth Hayes, who had just entered the chamber. "Captain, would you kindly remind the general of our terms?" Hayes stepped forward, her voice flat. "You will tell the council what happened. How you lost. How your entire command was dismantled in days." "Oh," she leaned closer. "We let you go. Back to your people. And you explained to them how you were defeated so completely that you weren't even worth killing." Vextar's claws twitched. The humiliation burned deeper than any wound. Slowly, reluctantly, he lifted his head and spoke. They are not like us," he rasped. "They do not fight for honor. They do not fight with pride. They fight to win." His voice shook. "They hunted us like prey. They killed our leaders first, made us turn on each other. By the time we realized what was happening, we had already lost." A heavy silence settled over the chamber. Ambassador Kael'Vok exhaled, rubbing his temples. "Stars help us." "A new order." Vasquez crossed his arms. "The Dralic underestimated us. Many of you did. That mistake cost them everything." He let his gaze sweep across the assembled aliens. "So let me be very clear. If humanity ever has to fight again, it will not be an equal war. It will be extinction." The councilors exchanged uneasy glances. They had believed humans to be reckless warriors at best, cannon fodder at worst. Now, they saw the truth. Humans didn't wage war. They ended it. Kael'Vok cleared his throat. "And what does humanity want now?" Vasquez smirked. "We want peace." The Avrixian diplomat scoffed. "Peace? After this? You expect us to believe that?" Vasquez shrugged. "Peace is what we always wanted. But peace on our terms. If you come after us, if you threaten us or our people, we won't respond with diplomacy." His expression darkened. "We'll respond with annihilation." The final warning. Captain Hayes turned to Vextar. "You're going to carry a message back to what's left of your people. Tell them to stand down. If they even think about coming after humanity again, they won't just lose a fortress. They'll lose everything." Vextar's jaw tightened, but he nodded. He had seen the truth. There was no more fight left in him. Vasquez glanced at the council. "The choice is yours. You can work with us, or you can test what happens when humanity truly goes to war." No one spoke. Kael'Vok finally gave a slow, deliberate nod. "The council will convene and discuss terms of cooperation with humanity." Vasquez smiled. "Good. I think that would be wise." As he turned to leave, Hayes looked over her shoulder at the stunned council. "Next time," she said, "don't underestimate us." With that, The humans walked out, leaving behind a room full of terrified leaders who had just learned the true cost of provoking Earth.